So I want you to imagine 17-year-old me, right? I am objectively kind of ugly, and I exist in a world where on social media, because I was very into Instagram back then, on social media, it was full of very attractive people, but everyone would say the same thing, which was that physical looks don't matter, right? Attractiveness doesn't matter, and real beauty is on the inside. And me being an idiot, believed them. But even though I believed them, I couldn't figure out why I still felt ugly and unattractive. Even though I knew everyone said that real beauty is on the inside, I still felt shunned by basically all of the outside world because of how ugly I looked, how unattractive I looked for a young man. Imagine the mindfuck that is. Everyone's telling you that looks don't matter, real beauty's on the inside, and I was a nice kid, so I believed that I was very attractive for my personality. And then the world itself turns around and fucks you and punishes you for believing what it tells you. That's a shit test. When I first got turned on to lifting by some influencers and my father first began teaching me, I basically decided to myself that no matter what other people said, I was going to continue until I became the most athletic and attractive version of myself possible. And basically, more attractive than everyone else around me in my hometown. That's what I decided right there and then. Which is like a very extreme thing. Right? Obviously, most people get into working out just because they were like, oh, I'm putting on some weight, I need to get healthier. I was like, no, I'm going to be better than everyone else in my hometown, in my local area. I'm going to be better than them. That was what I decided at the start. I remember early on, maybe a few months in, I was standing in front of the mirror after a workout, right? I was in my bathroom at home because I used to only work out at home back then. We had a few dumbbells and a bench. So I was standing in front of my mirror, the shower's running because I'm about to get in, and I look at myself, and I still think I look ugly and unattractive. But I basically remember distinctly deciding right then and there that no matter how ugly my face looked, because I had no idea if your face was changeable. It is, by the way. I decided no matter how ugly my face looked, I was going to get an attractive physique. And I'll just be that guy that has kind of an ugly face, but like a really good physique. And I said that to myself in the mirror. And then I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Like I can see that working out for me fine. I would basically be as attractive as I wanted, even if my facial looks never changed. Great, right? But here's the thing. I didn't realize that I had tapped into basically the biggest thing that anyone can do for becoming attractive. Like the number one thing that affects overall objective attractiveness. And that's working out. There's a lot of guys that are very concerned with how they look, right? There are looks maxing communities online. There are people that do a lot of skincare stuff, people that do a lot of sort of jewelry and accessory stuff to try and sort of maximize their attractiveness. And all of that stuff is great. But it's not the one big thing. And the one big thing is getting an athletic and healthy and lean body. That is the number one thing. And that might sound kind of silly to us guys, right? Who care very deeply for kind of the intricacies of like attractiveness. Because it's what we're attracted to, right? Us men like beautiful girls who have the kind of makeup look, they have the kind of pretty look, the doll look. And that's natural. So that's what we want, right? But we can't think about what we want. The world doesn't care about what we want. What matters is what girls actually find attractive. And that is, if you did nothing else, largely, if you did nothing else but had an attractive physique, you would get some amount of attention from girls. There is no one who has an attractive physique that is not a social recluse that doesn't get some attention from girls, some attraction from girls. And this has a lot to do with sort of biological stuff. Because if you think about it, the men who are the most biologically attractive are the ones that are stronger, faster, healthier, and have better genes, right? Stronger, more athletic genes that people can pass on to their kids. Now there's some other stuff that goes into it, obviously, right? After you get attractive, there's some other stuff that goes into it. But about a year into my journey, okay, this is kind of my first real experience of figuring out that I was becoming attractive. About a year into my journey, me and my brother were hanging out with this kind of group of girls. They were all sisters, right? And I remember when we started hanging out with them, they would always start making jokes about how attractive I was. And again, I know this sounds very egotistical. Like, oh, he thinks he's so attractive. Like, no, look at this guy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they have said that. Other people have said this to me, and I couldn't believe it. But they would do things like say every time I see you, you look like you're modeling for something, right? They would say stuff like that over and over and over and over. Imagine that. I went from 17-year-old me having people make subtle little stabs at me being unattractive to about 18 or 19-year-old me with girls making subtle jokes about me being extremely attractive. Isn't that wild? And I want that same thing for you. I remember they actually tried to set me up with their cousin, who was also very hot, and she wanted to get with me, but I had already actually made a girlfriend by that point that I loved a lot. Because I had gotten more active with getting on dating apps and stuff like this and meeting new girls, and I actually got a girlfriend. So even though they tried to set me up with this really attractive woman, I was like, I'm sorry, I have a girlfriend. I can't do that. Imagine that transformation. I go from 17-year-old me, unattractive, zero dating prospects, to like 19-year-old me, who's an absolute fucking Chad, an absolute fucking legend. And I couldn't believe it, because I wasn't focusing on looks maxing at all. Like, I wasn't doing mewing. I wasn't really focused on skincare. I didn't really kind of care about all that stuff. I was just basically in the gym for an hour a day doing my thing, like weightlifting, which I would have done anyways. I'm sure if you're a young man watching this and you're sort of in the gym, you realize, like, I would have done that anyways. It's kind of fun now, right? And if you've never been in the gym, what you have to realize is after about a month or a couple months, it kind of gets more fun and automatic, and it's like, okay, I enjoy doing this thing now. So just by having the gym as a hobby, I basically got sufficient dating prospects, which is wild. That is the number one most effective thing. Not all this other stuff, not all this other looks max stuff, because by the way, all those looks max guys, they don't really get girls. This is why they're so obsessive about looking amazing and looking incredible. Is instead of going out in public and speaking to actual girls, they just kind of like do bone mashing or whatever the fuck. They do like this really insane stuff because they think that their attractiveness is somehow going to magically teleport women to them. The number one thing you have to understand is that healthy equals attractive. Healthy and attractive are essentially the same thing, and people talk about this a lot. Like really smart people that have dated a lot of women. Healthy and attractive are the same thing, essentially. Biologically, that makes sense. The healthy guy is more favorable to reproduce with. It just makes sense, right? Now, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. As I said before, right? Charisma is one. If you go out into a public park, sit down. Here's an actual step for you. Sit down in a public park, watch couples go by. A lot of really ugly, fat men are paired with very attractive women. Okay? So there's other stuff you can do. You can get lucky. You can meet a woman at the right time in her life where she's like ready to date. You can be extremely charismatic and you can sort of win a woman over that way, right? But let's not assume that we are special. Let's not assume that we are special little snowflakes. Because let's be honest, we're not. Okay? We're not the exception. We have to actually work for what we want. Probably harder than we want to if we want to get what we want. Okay? None of us are special little snowflakes. We're not going to get lucky. We can't rely on that. We can't assume that. All right? Now, it's good to build charisma. It's good to learn how to tease girls and flirt with girls. Because basically back then, by the way, this is another thing. Back when those girls would always make jokes about me being attractive, they would always flirt with me. I had no idea how to talk to women or date women. I had no idea how to flirt with girls at all. Zero experience. But they made it easy for me, which is also something to look forward to if you're kind of like an unattractive guy, maybe a medium ugly guy. It gets easier if you're attractive. They basically offer you chances to get experience in skills that are required for dating. And honestly, in terms of facial attractiveness, what I've noticed with most guys is that facial attractiveness changes once you start working out. With most guys, if they start with an ugly face, either their body becomes attractive and it sort of negates the face, so the face doesn't really matter, right? So you don't even notice or care. Or the face changes along with the body to more of like a Viking build. Like your jawline gets sharper. You become like more of you get like warrior eyes. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but your face sort of changes as your body matures. It's almost like going through a special type of growth spurt. It's very strange. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't really worry about facial attractiveness. Maybe skincare, because skincare is good. But honestly, just focus on the thing, if you don't know what the Pareto principle is, the Pareto principle is 20% of things contribute to 80% of the results, or 20% of the entire group, the 20% group, gets 80% of the results. So that's like the top salesman gets 80% of the sales, right? 80% of the leads. This is sort of a principle that is applicable throughout life. And in weightlifting, in the game of attraction, weightlifting and building an aesthetic physique is the 20% item that will get you 80% of the results. I promise you, even if you suck talking to girls, even if you are largely unattractive in other areas, this is going to work. So yeah, I just want to tell you, becoming attractive is simpler than you think. It's basically weightlift, eat healthy. You're going to become attractive. And obviously just, get around girls, keep talking to girls. Otherwise, you're not going to see the results of this. So that's the number one lesson is don't worry about all that other stuff. If you would like to, then that's great. Go for it. Especially after you become attractive and get an aesthetic physique. Once you become physically attractive, which is kind of like getting your foot in the door with a girl, right? Because she's automatically like, okay, this guy is not horrendously ugly. I would date him. Then you can worry about all of the other supportive skills, like flirting, right? Or like getting the rest of your life together so you're impressive, being responsible, right? Making her feel secure. All this other kind of stuff. This is the way that you get your foot in the door and start having actual romantic experiences as a young man. So that's the lesson. Basically, hit the gym, get an aesthetic physique. It's simpler than you think. It just takes an hour a day, probably, and a little bit of dedication and consistency. So if you would like help with this, I have a full program, which is going to be the top link in the description. It has all of my lifter knowledge to this date put into a course, and it's got so much that I cannot possibly put into any one of these videos. So I think you'll benefit a lot from going down there, clicking the link, reading what it has to offer, watching the video, checking it out, seeing if it seems like something for you, and if you're interested in investing in yourself. And if it doesn't seem like it's for you right now, then you can obviously just close the tab, and yeah, that's fine. If you don't decide to check that out, there is something that you can do which is a win-win for both of us, which is to scroll down and click the subscribe button. I win because I get a new subscriber, and you win because anytime I have a new insight or learn something new or try something else new, then I can make a video about it and teach you and provide you with value directly. So thank you for watching. That's all. Bye.